The media, the coaches, the fans in the Big 12 all did unofficial polls, but polls nonetheless. And they all picked the same Big 12 champion. That would be K-State. All three of those. The coaches, via Brett McMurphy, picked K-State, Iowa State in the Big 12 title game with K-State winning. The media picked K-State number one in the preseason unofficial poll from the Gambling Gauchos. The fan poll that I had you guys submit to, everybody voted there, picked the Big 12 champ to be K-State. The players, who I also surveyed, I talked to about 30 of them at Big 12 Media Days. The players picked K-State to finish tied for sixth. They do not agree. They have a totally different champion. In fact, a tie atop the league. So what gives here? Two questions. Why the difference? And can we trust the players? I've got some data on that. So let's dive into this. All right. I mentioned Gambling Gauchos. Shout out to my boys there. They did the unofficial media poll. We talked about it last week. K-State was the pick to win the league there, which by that point was not very surprising to me. I've seen enough love for them. I gave you my theory on that. In a nutshell, when you're dealing with teams and programs that have really oscillated quite a bit, Arizona State was 3-9. Then all of a sudden they're a play away from the semifinals of the college football playoff. Like, okay, wow, huge jump, but can I trust that with a 34-year-old head coach dealing with expectations for the first time? We'll see. When you are wanting to talk about a Baylor team that almost fired its head coach midway through last year, or people certainly felt like that was coming, and now all of a sudden I'm supposed to put them in there, or like Texas Tech spent all this money in the portal, but they haven't had a double-digit win season since 2009. Like, all of this is tough. And in that world, you can say, well, I know Chris Kleiman. If it's not a COVID year, as long as there's not a pandemic, he's going to win 8 games. Minimum. He'll be in the conversation. So it feels like a more safe pick. That was my theory on why this all happened. And it's my theory on why K-State had the most votes of anybody among the coaches when Brett McMurphy asked them to pick a first and second place finisher. Iowa State didn't get a single vote to win the league, but they had 7, I believe it was, runner-ups. So they were right there, but the pick was K-State to win the league. The fan poll, if you want to see the fan poll, I will show you what the results of it were. If you are a subscriber to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, you got a chance to vote in it. If you follow me on Twitter at JL Kurtz, you got a chance to vote in it. OFBnews.com, by the way, to subscribe to said newsletter. But here it is. Here are the results of the poll. So K-State out in front, Texas Tech, Arizona State, BYU, pretty neck and neck there for 3, Baylor, Iowa State, Utah, TCU, West Virginia. Now, the fan poll, I'm not telling you to put as much stock in this, and it's nothing against you, the fans. I'm not. Look, I'm a part of the media that created the preseason media poll last year that could not have been more wrong and more comically wrong. So that is not a slight to the fans and the fans' knowledge of the league or the teams or anything like that. But this is skewed toward my followers, of which I obviously have a lot of K-State followers. I have a lot of BYU followers. So things can be a little bit skewed there, just in the interest of full transparency. But that was at least a sampling of fans. I thought that would still be interesting to see. So everybody's on K-State there. Everybody's on K-State there. But I go talk to the players. And I can remember as I was doing this, it's over the course of 2 days in Frisco, Big 12 Media Days, and you're trying to go find players, pull them off to the side. A lot of times it's when they're in between different media obligations, and you would just go pull them aside for a little bit. And so it's kind of, just a mad dash. I get in when I can to try and get all these guys. Unfortunately, not something I can just set up like officially where everybody comes to me. But I got almost all the way through the first day. And I remember thinking at one point, I was like, this is very interesting. This is very interesting because I have not heard a single player say K-State yet. And K-State has been dominating most of what I've seen recently. I had also not heard anybody say Utah, and Utah at that point had taken over as the FanDuel favorite in the odds market there. So it's like, this is pretty fascinating where the players are at. Day 2, it's still going pretty much that same way. And when the dust settled, there were co-champions according to the players. The players picked a tie atop the Big 12 standings. 5 selected Arizona State. 5 selected Texas Tech. Okay, so you have the returning champion and the team that generated the most headlines this offseason because of the money spent in Texas Tech. Baylor was not far behind. Baylor got 4. Iowa State 3, BYU 2, TCU 1, Utah 1, K-State 1, Colorado 1, Kansas 1. So K-State, some context here. K-State, the team that was picked to win by the coaches and the media, got the same amount of votes to win from the players as Colorado and Kansas. That's pretty fascinating, right? Like what is going on here with the players? And I'm not saying that this is a perfect sample size, taking a sample of basically 30 players. There were a couple that told me like, dude, I don't even know. You guys know. Nobody can predict this conference. Sample of 30 players, not a perfect representation of everybody, but interesting nonetheless, because the players that are here are essentially the best players throughout the league, right? Like teams get to choose who they're bringing. They're not going to bring players that they think are bad. They're not going to bring guys who are just new to the roster, freshmen that may not have a good grasp on things. You would expect these to be guys that are a little bit more plugged in, right? Leadership type of guys that are coming. My thought was this. One, Sam Levitt absolutely dominated. This is a little bit of a spoiler to another piece of the anonymous player survey. Sam Levitt absolutely dominated the vote for best quarterback. The players overwhelmingly think that he's the best quarterback in the league, and so you can pretty easily just carry that out. Hey, makes a lot of sense. If I think Arizona State has the best quarterback in the league by a wide margin, of course, I'm going to think that they're the best team in the league. I will pick them to win. That's a pretty easy, you want to simplify football about as much as you can. That's a pretty easy way to do it. But they also had a lot to say when I was asking about NIL and money. A lot of conversations about Texas Tech and a lot of comments about, man, they're paying an offensive lineman $5.1 million. Now, I know that's been a little bit disputed, might be incentive-based, but everybody saw the headline of the number one player in the state of Texas that Tech signed out of high school, who the headline was $5.1 million deal. They know, the players do. They are keenly aware of the money being thrown around by Texas Tech right now. So I felt like some of that attention and the players looking around like, damn, like, hey, man, I know what I'm getting paid. If they're doing that for an offensive lineman, a high school kid, like, they must be serious. They must be serious. And I saw that they've got the number one portal class. And all. To me, it felt like there was a lot of that going on with Texas Tech. And you know what? That's a perfectly respectable take and opinion to have. Baylor, I kind of felt like, hey, if it's anybody that played Baylor in the second half of last season and they saw Sawyer Robertson, man, I can understand why they would be pretty high on the Bears and where they are at. Now, I guess that doesn't specifically explain why K-State would not be getting more love or more votes, but as far as why Texas Tech and Arizona State, I think to me that's the most plausible explanation there. But can we trust the players? That was the other question that I asked. I asked 2 questions. Why did it come out this way? And then 2, can we trust the players? And based on last year, the answer is emphatically no. But the answer would also last year have been an emphatic no on the media, as I have already explained here. If you would have polled anybody last year, I think you definitely would have had them look very, very wrong. But I'm sorry, Arizona fans. I don't mean to chuckle, but I went back and looked at my survey from last year. The school that got 5 votes and therefore won the player vote last year to win the league was Arizona. That obviously went disastrously. Now, I tend to think that's like the players really like Noah Fafita and Teteroa McMillan, and they were generating a lot of buzz. That a great bowl game performance, in a fairly high-profile bowl game. Alamo Bowl is going to be one of the most watched outside of the New Year's Six. May have just generated a lot of juice out of that. Some intrigue with Arizona being in the league for the first time. Apparently, there was a lot of intrigue for a couple newcomers because Utah was just behind at 4. Utah finished 5-7. Oklahoma State was 3rd. Oklahoma State went 3-9. Didn't win a game in the league. So the players' top 3 last year did not work out well at all. Obviously, nobody picked Arizona State. I don't know that I need to say that, but that is true. So the players cannot be trusted, just like, well, basically anybody else when predicting the Big 12. But interesting to see how different things are as we head into Big 12 play. I will continue to say I was surprised at how much things started to seemingly unify around K-State as we got deeper and deeper into the offseason. I didn't expect that this year. I thought people would see the inconsistencies of last year and ended the season cold, like the opposite of what happened to Baylor, where Baylor ended the season hot and they've generated a lot of positive buzz because of it. Kind of the opposite deal with K-State, but still a lot of positivity there. A lot of positivity there from folks.